I'm going to do the live intro again because
Yep, sure.
YOLO and stuff. What's going on, guys? My name is Alden Nero, and welcome to episode 4 of the Midnight Hour. My guest once again is Jack. If you want to introduce yourself.
I think I've been thoroughly introduced by now. I'm not sure there's much more I can say than acknowledging the fact that it is me.
And that you're very, very tall and you have a very vast...
Majestic beard, yeah.
Yes, that's the exact word I would have used, was majestic. But every podcast that we've done so far seems to have kind of thematically just evolved onto the next episode, where we haven't even had to put too much effort into it because it just kind of makes sense to move forward from topic to topic. And the topic that we've agreed on for this episode is going to be quite simply mysteries, but it will probably evolve into something a little bit more than that by the end of the conversation, because they usually do. In the way that we went from conspiracy theories to aliens to all the secrets of the universe exposed, I believe.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so that was pretty interesting. But whenever I think of mysteries, I tend to sort of focus on people disappearing and things like that. And I think the reason for that is one of the first mysteries, one of the first things that struck me when I was younger was when we were learning about Amelia Earhart in school. And she was a female pilot she'd pretty much gained celebrity status in the 1930s. She was a really big deal in America. And she was like flying all over the place. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, and by all accounts she was a skilled and experienced pilot. She disappeared out of nowhere though, and this was in 1937. And this, when I was learning about this in school, like, it was the first time I'd ever been exposed to this type of thing. And it was the first time I realized that, like, shit, people can just go missing and never be found again, and that's really weird. And it just, like, struck a chord with me. It's one of the greatest mysteries, apart from wondering whatever the hell the singer from the 1975 is talking about in their song Chocolate, because I don't know what the fuck that's all about. But she's believed to have disappeared around Howland Island. I looked it up. It's an uninhabited coral island located just north of the Equatorian Central Pacific Ocean, around 1,700 nautical miles southwest of Honolulu. And that's about as technical as I get. I'm not even sure I fully understand what that means. But her lighter was found, which sort of added to the whole mystery around it. In all probability, we do know that she, like, in all likelihood, she crashed and was in an area where they could never find her again. And that was just, I don't know, it's just really strange, because if you imagine in the 1930s, they probably had so many, not conspiracy theories, but they probably had so many theories about how she went missing and where she went missing and what happened to her, and, you know, all of these things that just didn't really make sense at the time. And it's always just been very strange. Like I say, the probability is that she just crashed, but that's the one that always strikes me because of the fact that, like, this planet is so large, and even now we don't have the capabilities to locate certain things that go missing, be it beneath the ocean or otherwise, and it's all just it's really strange. And that's just kind of the foundation for my interest in mystery and things like that, really. As I said, though, we probably know what happened, but the fact that it's never been really settled has always kind of disturbed me a little bit, or made me question things a little bit.
I mean, a really interesting thing is that they didn't actually decide to declare her dead until almost 2 years after she disappeared.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not sure if there was an active, search for her throughout those 2 years, but somehow I doubt it.
Yeah.
But no matter how big a celebrity she was, she disappeared. Well, she could have disappeared essentially anywhere. I mean, she was circumnavigating the world on that trip, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Or she was attempting to, and
yeah, I believe so.
And what we tend to forget is that, looking on a globe, the oceans, they seem large, but there's no way to grasp how massively massive the oceans are.
I know, yeah, it's just very disconcerting to realise all the statistics and things about how little we know about the ocean and stuff, and it's all just. I think that's what gets people, is just, she could be fucking anywhere. They did find her lighter though, which does point to the possibility of a crash, but they never found any wreckage or anything like that. So it's just,
and I mean, it's not uncommon for planes to go missing, even over land. There's been a few in, I think, Siberia in the last 60 or so years, where planes have, within radar, kind of within radar contact have failed
Yeah.
and have disappeared into the woods, or the scrubland, not scrubland, but into the bushes of Siberia, basically.
Yeah.
And have never been found.
Yeah, even like
And
nowadays.
that's not even. Yeah, that's not even. They haven't sunk to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
They're on land, just under some trees.
Yeah.
And they've just never been found. Like the expanse of the world for something like a small aircraft like she would have been in is impossible.
I heard, you know how we kind of get all these statistics shoved down our throats about human overpopulation and how we're not going to have enough people. Now, what that is from, like, people kind of form a misconception over what that actually means. That's not relative to the amount of land that we're swallowing up as we evolve. It's more the fact that we cannot feed every single person, and that's what overpopulation relates to. I heard a fact once.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, there's two places this could be. It's either Texas or California, I'm not too sure. But supposedly, if you got every single person in the world and had them stand side by side, you wouldn't even fill up the state of California. Like, so that
I think you told me that one before, and I think it was Texas.
Was it Texas?
But I think so. That's second hand coming from you, I think.
Yeah.
But I do remember reading a fact. It was in a book by an author, one of my favourite authors, called Bill Bryson. And it was something like in 1990, only 2% of America was classified as built up.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And okay, it's been 24 years since then.
Oh god, I can't. Do you ever
Lord.
struggle to add that up? And
Yeah.
Like, you always count backwards to the year 2000 and use that as your basis or something? I do.
As far as I'm concerned, the year 2000 is only 7 years ago.
Yeah.
That's completely besides the point.
For me, it's 2
so-
years from now. I'm still in 98, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, but I mean, there's just such a massive. Like, the world's massive. Like, we forget that with places like, America only being a flight away, but they still are. It's still such a ridiculously massive, especially oceans, a massive expanse of water.
Yeah. And there's plenty of cases similar to hers. It's just hers sort of set the benchmark for the fact that fucked up shit happens in seemingly normal and safe situations and stuff. But we have another story which you actually first told me about this one, and this is an example of a person who didn't exactly go missing, but a part of their life did.
For all intents and purposes, he has gone missing.
Yeah.
This guy called Benjamin Kyle. But it's not even his actual name per se.
Yeah.
It's because it's one that he's just adopted. But he's currently the only American citizen officially listed as missing, despite everybody knowing where he is.
Yeah.
And that sounds ridiculous. He woke up in 2004, I think it was, behind. This might be slightly exaggerated, but as far as I know, he woke up behind Burger King. He just woke up there on a day in 2004.
Yeah.
And he had no identification. He had no idea who he was, how he got there, where he was from. Nothing. Until that point of him waking up behind that Burger King, there was nothing in his life.
Yeah.
As far as he's aware. And people have there's been a massive nationwide media outcry and people trying to find out who he is, people coming forward saying they might recognise him from when he possibly worked in the back of a fast food restaurant.
That's right.
He somehow has the knowledge, when you hear things like people with amnesia often come back to things and they pick them up again very quickly because they've learnt them in the past.
Yeah, amnesia is sort of not really a clinical. It's not really the way that movies and stuff like that perceive it to be. It's more of a thing that's sort of a temporary loss in memory, or else it's just a slight sort of blip or a glitch in your ability to form your memories and things like that. But
amnesia comes in so many different forms.
Yeah, it's not really
impossible to quantify it in one word, really.
I don't believe it's actually a clinical term. I think it's just a name given to loss of memory. And it might be clinical, though. I don't know.
But I mean, these people have come forward saying that they think they recognised him from 10 years prior, working a grill in a a as what the Americans call a mum and pop diner or whatever they are.
Yeah, and even that evidence is suspect because of we know how hard it is for people to recognize faces and things like that. Like, they've done many studies where there's one person, say, interviewing somebody, and then they leave the room and a completely different person comes back masquerading as the previous person, and the person, the interviewee in the situation, just doesn't recognize that because their ability to... We don't really pay attention to everything that's going on, because if we did, our brains would like implode, you know, like there's too much information, there's too many things going on, and the way people's memories work, even an artist's rendering of somebody describing somebody from memory is never going to be right, like, or it might not even be kind of right, you know, like there are so many ways that can be distorted by like life experience and things, so even that, you know, doesn't really give us any real insight or clue.
But what's so incredibly fascinating about this guy is that there has been essentially, and it's I'm sure it must have spread into places like Canada as well. I mean, he's you know, just your average Caucasian male in his 50s or 60s, you know, and he's just completely just appeared off the map, and no one has come forward to kind of say, yep, he's our relative, or, you know, he's my friend. And it's amazing how can you go your life and then wake up and nobody wants to come forward and claim they know who you are,
especially pre-internet era, right? So like he couldn't have just been a guy who socialized primarily on the internet. Like, this is a guy who had to have existed. Like, he has to have a backstory. Somebody has to know who he is.
I mean, we're not talking, this is, we're not saying this is like 30 years ago. This is 10 years ago this happened. And it's been 10 years and still nobody knows who he is.
That doesn't make sense.
That's the thought. I couldn't, because somebody would probably recognise me, I hope. I'd like to think that somebody would kind of go, yeah, I know who he is.
I'd probably do it. I'd probably be that guy.
But, like, it just baffles my mind that no one... And there's been outreach in the UK as well. Things in The Guardian and stuff like that. But I just don't know how he could... disappear and appear and just no one know who he is.
Like, because he could have been like, we're gonna just, you know, theorize and just throw some wacky pseudo-scientific explanations out there that we don't really understand but we've just come up with, but like, he could have been part of a military experiment, you know, like there were many experiments conducted by the likes of basically like the US Army and the CIA and things like that. There were many experiments and even conspiracies like committed by the CIA. I nearly said IRA, and I don't know why. The CIA and the US Army, that, you know, could have led to something like this. I remember reading one about they poisoned some water supply in some town, and they've done other things with drugs before they understood the effects of things like methamphetamines and stuff like that. Like, he could have been a prototype or something, you know, but there's no visible scars on him, there's no visible trauma. Like, he looks by all accounts like a completely normal human being. He's just missing most of his life and nobody knows why.
I mean, this is one thing that I've there is actually a documentary that was made about him. I think it was just a short documentary. I can't remember the name of it. It was a student film. It was called Finding Benjamin. That was it.
All right.
And it, you know, just chronicles his curious circumstances, and, you know, it was like to help garner media attention, really. And there will never be a part of me that will understand how this can happen.
Wouldn't it be funny if in like 30 years he's still alive, but he's gotten 30 years younger, and it was the curious case of Benjamin Kyle, and what actually happened was that he was born like that, and he was just a dumpster baby, so his mum just left him in a dumpster behind a Burger King because she was like, the fuck is this? I've just like unleashed a full-grown man out of my uterus. I don't want this, and then just left him there. And he's actually kind of get younger and younger and younger as time goes on.
That would be terrifying, to say the least.
I know. The thing is, though, that's just just as likely as any other explanation. Because,
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
you know, like nobody knows. It's fair enough to speculate on pretty much any aspect of this that you want, but that's out there. Like, I'd recommend looking it up, and I mean, you're not going to learn anything that we haven't just said, but it's still a really fascinating thing. There was another one that this was one that I read about a few years ago on the website Cracked, which it's a comedy website, but they have many like deeply informative articles and a lot of things to do with mysteries and just unsolved cases and things. I'd recommend going to Cracked, but don't do it now, because listen to this for now. But this is the Brazilian lead masks case, and did you ever hear about this one before?
Not before you mentioned it, no.
Yeah, so this one blows my mind, right? It's 1966, and some kid is flying his kite in Rio in Brazil, and he's having a great time because it's the 60s and flying kites is still a thing. And he stumbles across two dead bodies, which is probably unsettling enough, you know, under the normal circumstances of doing that. But these bodies were covered in grass, wearing suits. Like, I don't know if they were tuxedos or not, but they were definitely fancy suits, the kind that you would wear if you wanted to impress somebody. And they were wearing lead masks and waterproof jackets. That's all weird, right? They had an empty bottle of water and two towels next to them, and a note that said 4:30 p.m. be at the agreed place. 6:30 p.m. swallow capsules. After effect, protect metals, wait for mask signal. That's what the note said. And this was on the corpses, and there were no signs of struggle, no internal injuries on the men. So their deaths are as mysterious as anything in the world, you know. They wanted to do a toxicology report on these guys, but this is where the case sort of verges into mystery, I believe, because the toxicology report was botched. I think it was because it was the 60s and they didn't really have the resources to do so many of them. But when they eventually got around to the autopsy, the bodies were too decomposed, so they couldn't actually come up with a logical conclusion. But it's a fucking mystery. Like, there are so many theories out there that these guys were trying to time travel because they were taking these capsules and putting on these masks. Maybe it was to help them travel through time or something. Like, they could have been goaded into it by a cult, as we spoke about in other previous episodes. But it's all just really strange. Like, why would they, like, right, if you find two dead bodies and you've no explanation, that's fair enough, but when they're wearing lead masks and waterproof jackets and suits with a weird cryptic note that doesn't point to anything, like, what are you supposed to think about that? Like, I haven't read anything to suggest that they had a family who backed up or who like attempted to explain their story or anything like that. As far as I know, there are no reports on the internet or anything like that about anything that their families had to say or anything. So like, this is just another fucking mystery that, like, I really like trying to just decide or, you know, definitively come up with what the hell they must have been doing, and I can't. It's just really strange. I don't suppose you found out.
No, I mean, in terms of just hearing that for the first time, it does sound like a suicide pact.
Yeah, it does.
But if you're going to make a suicide pact, do you need to write down
Nope.
the time and place that you're going to meet? Because surely you can remember something like that.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I wouldn't forget 4:30, be at that place that we said.
Yeah.
6:30, swallow capsules, put some mask, protect metals.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wait for mask signal. I've just had a quick read while you were explaining it as well, and there's a theory that they were part of a group known as scientific spiritualists, which were about in the 60s. It took psychedelic drugs because they believed they'd trigger like proper spiritual experiences.
Okay.
However, that doesn't explain why they had what they were wearing, why the masks. It doesn't explain much.
No, and the part where that says wait for mask signal, who's
giving the signal?
Yeah, where does this signal
what
originate?
is giving the signal?
Yeah, and like, why is that necessary? When you just mentioned psychedelic drugs, I did have this thought that perhaps it was like one of those things where, like, in hypothetical land, your friend goes, "Listen, man, I've got some mushrooms. If you take them, you will see something. So let's make it as trippy as possible." And you'll go on the internet and look up some trippy visualization background or something like that. But maybe that's what they did in the '60s for that type of effect. Was they dressed up in suits with waterproof jackets on, and then mask signals over it. But like when you think about the criteria required here, like a suit, a waterproof jacket, and a lead mask, what would you be doing that would require specifically those three things? Like, you're going to a metalist's wedding and it's gonna be in the rain. Like, it's not.
And then just another thought that passed my mind was that they were doing it as like a joke, but then it's like, who makes a suicide pact and decides, "It'll be fucking hilarious though." Wait for this, mate. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get some suits. Hold on, it doesn't stop there. We're going to get some waterproof jackets. This suicide is going to be hilarious, trust me. And some lead masks. And then we write a note that doesn't quite make sense. Oh, we need wet towels as well, by the way. I just don't... Like, it just... Like, if you think that it was a suicide pact and they would... What... Did they want to dress smartly? And say they were these spiritualists or whatever.
Yeah.
Did they want to dress smartly but appropriately for what they thought they would encounter? And why, if they thought they were going to encounter something, would lead masks be appropriate?
Yeah, why? I don't understand. Like, I'm not sure I even fully understand what a lead mask, like, what its actual purpose is. Like, in the sense that, like, I can understand wearing a suit, because if you were committing suicide and you want to look your best, like, that's fair, that's your prerogative. Yeah. Like, go and do that. Maybe the waterproof jackets were there to just protect the corpse's integrity, and like in case it rained or something. Maybe it's something like that. But it's like they were the Remy Gilliards of their day, and it was just here, man. It'd be the ultimate troll. Like, it's crazy.
The lead masks, all I can think of is, they use leads to, like, or they used to use lead to, they use lead to protect from radiation.
Yeah. But
then why are they only protecting their faces?
Yeah.
Like, there's a big flaw in their plan here.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna get them anyway.
Yeah, it's possible that they thought the waterproof jackets would protect.
Maybe.
Yeah, you kind of have to maybe understand the mentality of what was going on in the '60s in Brazil. And maybe then you could find some sort of cultural reference that would make it all make sense.
Yeah.
But definitely from the outset, reading it, like, it's really, really odd. And I think had their toxicology report found anything, it would have just been that whatever capsules they swallowed were, in all likelihood, obviously poison, because that's how they died. Like, there's nothing that points towards murder, given that they say that they were going to take these capsules. But had they been part of a cult, like you suggested, it's possible they were misled and told that, these capsules would take them to the strange planet Orion, where they would dance in a lead mask frenzy and, worship the new waterproof jacket god or something.
Yeah, it's not uncommon that, cults have initiated suicide pacts and kind of suicide things. But that one's very, very interesting, to say the least.
It is. I don't know.
I'm kind of stumped with this one.
Yeah, it's just odd. Shall we move on to the bloop?
Yeah.
This is one I've touched on before, because and this may surprise people. Like, I don't know, but I have a strange relationship with the ocean. I'm actually fascinated by it. Just throwing it out there. But seriously, the bloop was a sound detected underwater by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is a thing. And they heard this sound in 1997. It's a really low frequency sound, but it's very, very powerful. They said at the time that it was louder than any animal sound ever recorded, and it would take several blue whales, to be able to produce this type of sound, because it was so, like, just louder than anything before. And the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration said it was some ice breaking off a glacier that created the sound. But that's boring. There was a journalist who's on my wavelength, and he said it was most likely an animal that made the noise. And when I first heard that, I thought, oh, the reason that there's so much sort of hype surrounding this incident is because this journalist. But I read that this journalist actually had several conversations with the main guy from the NOAA, and that's where he came up with his theory that it was most likely made by an animal. The official stance on it now is not the glacier thing, it's that it was an ice quake. But for me, like, there's a slight possibility that it was the Call of Cthulhu or the Cloverfield monster or something, and that's why it's so fascinating. Have you ever actually listened to the sound?
I have, yeah.
It sounds very much. It does sound like something breaking off into the ocean. It kind of sounds like if you can just imagine bubbles rising to the surface and the word bloop, like, you'll be able to.
Yeah.
You know, it's an onomatopoeia sort of naming, but
Yeah.
it's still nothing that loud has been heard before or since. So if it was something really significant that happened beneath the oceans, surely there'd be some sort of, you know, evidence of it to point to and say, oh, this is probably what it was. Now there might even be that. I don't know. Like, I'm just, you know, I've browsed this. I've looked this up since I was first on the internet and I was interested in sea mysteries and stuff. I've been looking at the Bloop, and it is a really strange and fascinating kind of phenomenon, I think.
I mean, the most amazing thing is that so it was a big chunk of ice carving in Antarctica.
Yeah.
It was heard over several sensors. They've got these hydrophones, which are basically microphones of the water.
Yeah.
Obviously, and it was heard at a range of over 5,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
And you've got to wonder how big this event was to make a noise that loud.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, the polar ice caps are melting now, and we know about that. But they don't make that much noise.
No. Like, I mean, you can watch carving, like carving videos, like ice carving, which is when big chunks of ice fall off of basically bits of Antarctica and such, on YouTube, and it is loud.
Yeah.
But you're not going to hear it 5,000 kilometers away. And I understand that deep frequencies and, you know, these kind of frequencies can resonate a long distance.
Yeah.
But not.
Yeah. This
is.
is.
I just can't fathom a sound travelling for 5,000 kilometers interrupted.
Yeah, and you can imagine as well the sound recording that they have of it, that it sounds like a bloop. That's sped up 16 times its usual thing. So I think if you add that knowledge with the fact that it had to travel such a distance, like, I think there's plenty room in there for distortion, you know, for something that would distort the evidence, or something that would sort of, or could possibly change the perception of what it is. I mean, the journalist who, his name, I've completely forgotten his name, but I know that he has had several conversations with the guy from the NOAA, and I think he published in his first ever report on it that the guy from the NOAA was actually of the belief that it was also coming from an animal. And, like, if it is, like, that's something that seriously, I mean, we've spoken about it was the Fears and Phobias episode, about the fact that the giant squid, and it didn't exist until the year 2004 or so. And that obviously says that there's a lot we don't know about the depths, and the fact that there could very well be a very large species of animal down there that just happened to rise to the surface, or, you know, happened to rise high enough to make that kind of noise or something.
I mean, there's you know, I just seen the thing that the NOAA estimates that we haven't investigated, or we don't essentially know enough about 95% of the ocean. Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah. So that in
itself, which is just. You know, this is all stems back through our Fears and Phobias one, and our conspiracy theories of the sea people, that we don't know what's in the true depths of the ocean.
No.
And
it's very possible as well that the sea people were crafting, you know, vehicles of their own to travel through the ocean, and maybe it was a botched takeoff where they were trying to come up to the surface. You know, it could be anything, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. The 5,000 kilometers thing will always trips me up.
Yeah, I haven't travelled anywhere that, like, I haven't left my home and gone 5,000 kilometers distance in my life. Actually, I probably have, maybe. How far away would Croatia be? This is a topic for another day.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've never done it in a single journey anyways. You know, I've never done it on a single flight. I've never crossed the Atlantic Ocean. I've never gone that far. And, I mean, like, when we were talking about Mariana's Trench, that was, what, 2,500 kilometers across?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so this is twice that. Like, this is twice the length of, like, it's colossal. It's just something that we can't even fathom because it's just so great. And the noise is nothing that we've heard before or after, and it's louder than the loudest animal in the world, and the largest animal that has ever existed, and that's the blue whale.
Yep, and well, it may be from the largest animal that's ever existed. We don't know.
That's actually a fair point. Yeah.
But speaking of noises,
yes,
this is another one. It's some people might know of it as the buzzer or UVB-76.
That was when it went all emo-y and branched off into its own electronic area.
This is basically a sound that has come out of the depths of Russia, and it's been active since the late 70s or early 80s. They're not sure. And basically, it's a buzzer that goes off 25 times a minute for 24 hours a day, and it hasn't stopped since the 1970s/80s.
Yeah, I think I read it was late 70s, like 79 or so.
Yeah, 79, 82, those seem to be the two numbers that are thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
And there's been, I think there was three. There's been three interruptions of the buzzing, and they've all been a male voice saying a series of names, spelling out potential words or numbers.
Yeah.
The first one had the phrase UVB-76, all in Russian, of course. So that's where it gets that name from. And it's only been this 25 times a minute for 24 hours a day has only been interrupted 3 times since, the 1980s.
And that's just sit back for a minute and just think about that, and think about how fucking strange that is. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how can they not know what it is? I understand. I'm gonna take my tinfoil hat off for a moment and say that I know for a fact that the Russian language is incredibly detailed. There's a lot more to Russian than there is to English. They have something like 30 different words for just the color blue, like 30 different shades, and I know it's a really, really intensive type of language, and I think that could definitely explain what the things that have been described as potential words or codes or whatever it may be. That could definitely explain that, and it could be that it's not something trying to communicate, it's just something that mimics that type of word or number or whatever it might be. But that's kind of all I can do to rationalize it. It's an enigma that nobody has been able to solve, and it's just something that similar to the bloop. It comes from the depths, right? It comes from somewhere beneath something, and that's another just deeply settling thought. Have you read any possible explanations that have to do with something like plate tectonics or?
What, for the bloop or for
the
UVB-76?
Like something.
No, I mean most of the theories surround the Russian military naturally, because it does come from fairly deep within Russia, and the location of the beepers or the buzzer has come from has changed once, I think.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, in 2010, actually.
Jesus Christ.
And it says that, the change, this may have been due to a reorganisation of the Russian military.
Yeah.
You know,
could be. The Russians are notoriously secretive. Well, I mean, everybody is. I mean, we spoke about Roswell, like, especially a large country with a huge military operation like Russia would have. Obviously, they've been at the forefront of, like, several military, like, they've been on the forefront of several wars, you know, they've made their presence known on a world scale. They are a superpower, so they in all probability do have a lot of military operations going on that nobody knows about, with good reason too. So it's not implausible, you know, it's perfectly logical to theorize and speculate that it could be that, but that doesn't really make it any less or any more settling, you know. That doesn't make it any less kind of scary. And I think I don't know if I've read on some occasions that the Russian government is withholding information from the public about it, which puts a conspiratorial kind of spin on it, but I prefer the more mysterious side to it, just because I think that's more logical, you know. I think it's more that we just don't know what it is, similar to the Bloop effect. It could be anything, really.
I mean, the idea that it's, you know, Russian, American, English, everybody's known to have had spies, you know, masquerading in other countries, especially during the World Wars. But to have these cryptic messages being sent to this shortwave radio station that anyone can listen to, and nobody's managed to figure out what the voice transmissions mean.
I've actually just come across this thing on the Wikipedia page, and it's sourced as well. And this says at 22:25 UTC, which is 25 past 10 on September 1st, 2010. The buzzer was interrupted by a 38-second fragment of Dance of the Little Swans from the ballet Swan Lake. And 4 days later, on September 5th at 12:30 UTC, a female voice was heard counting from 1 to 9 in Russian. Just over an hour later, the buzzing silenced for a quiet male voice to read a voice message.
Yeah. That's... Yeah, I don't really have words to explain how creepy and weird that is.
No, and I think this could be one of those things, like, similar to... I kind of made this half-formed analogy or sort of half-formed explanation for how conspiracy theorists like to stand on this, you know, intellectual plane and act as if they're better than anyone else, and it's just throwing out words. Like, for example, I just said a bunch of things like 22:25 UTC. I could have just said 10:30, but when I say things like that, it makes it sound like I know more about what I'm talking about. And it could just be that the information, or what it is to do with frequencies and transmissions and things, has been made public, but most of the people who speculate about these types of things aren't really intelligent enough to understand, you know, specifically what it is. Like, in the same way that if you flip the hood of your car and tell me to plug the... My cousin will go crazy because he's probably listening to this and he's a car guy, but if you tell me to plug the chassis into the corroborator and, you know, download the frying pan through the main hard drive of the car. Nah, but you know what I mean? That just proves that I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to cars, in the same way that, like, we might not know everything about this. Like, we mightn't be able to rationalize this and put it into a normal analogy in language that everybody can understand. But that doesn't make it any less unsettling, you know? It's still very, very odd. And it is still, like, highly publicized that nobody knows anything about it.
Yeah, I know. I've just come across another thing and saying on one occasion, on April 9th, 2011, the device responsible for generating the buzzing apparently malfunctioned and technicians could be heard fixing it.
Oh, wow. So that's fucked. Like, that...
So, there's definitely people keeping it going for whatever reason, and apparently it's a fairly swift response to getting it fixed.
So it's definitely a device that's going to lead to the end of the world and possibly the zombie apocalypse, I would say.
The Russian zombie apocalypse, yeah.
Yeah, oh man, I bet the Russian zombie apocalypse would be so much more badass than the American one. Because, like, you know, everyone in America has a gun. Like, that's well publicized. You know, they give them out for free with bags of crisps over there. But no, seriously, in Russia, they don't really need guns because they're all just fucking crazy, and they'll all just take down several zombies with their fists and beards. So, you know, there's that to look forward to.
Yeah, Russia scares me.
Yeah, Russia does
for so many reasons.
Sticking with Russia, this one is called the Dyatlov Pass incident. Now, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that right. It's a really hard word for me to pronounce, especially me, considering I can't pronounce anything. But for anyone who hasn't heard of this, 9 ski hikers in Russia, they were hiking through some mountains in an area that I don't think it was uncommon for people to go, but the English translation for the section of mountain they were walking through is called the Dead Mountain. So if that wasn't a reason enough for them to turn around, like, I don't know what is. But basically they were all found naked and dead in the open on this hill with their tents torn open from the inside. There was no sign of struggle, and their injuries included missing eyeballs. One of them was missing lips and a tongue. Some of them had fractured skulls and broken bones. They all had severe internal injuries that could supposedly have only happened under extreme pressure. Like, it couldn't have happened in a fist fight, you know. It had to have been something that was different than that. And given that their footprints were all visible around the mountains, they ruled out the possibility of them being attacked by other humans. Like, there are some tribes that live around there supposedly who could have done it, but the fact that all the footprints were visible just rules that out. So that's something that actually happened, and the official story on this is that they all died because, get this, right, this is the official story, a compelling natural force. So that could be fucking anything, you know what I mean?
And if that isn't, that is as vague as it gets.
Yeah, right.
A compelling natural force.
Thankfully, they left the word natural in there, because had they just said a compelling force, or like a compelling fucked if we know, like, that's scary. One thing that I didn't add about that actually was that some of the bodies had extremely high levels of radiation in their system. Now, I read on another website that attempted to, well, for all intents and purposes, it did really debunk this, or sort of take it away from the mystery section. But their sort of thing said that the guys who were found naked had hypothermia, and their body did this thing where it convinces itself that it's too warm, because with hypothermia, you know, many of your senses shut down and things like that. So they tore their clothes off to escape the heat. But the article said that the radiation thing was made up. Now, I went and researched this, and I found an article on the St. Petersburg Times from 2008, which puts radiation back in the picture and backs it up, and says that the radiation is part of the official report from, I think this happened in the late 70s, which, funnily enough, is around the same time as the UVB-76 thing started up. So, they had high levels of radiation in their system, and as far as I know, there was no logical solution to that, or no logical reason why they would have that, because it wasn't near like a nuclear plant or, you know, anything with high levels of radiation around it. So I don't know if that's 100% or not, because I've read conflicting reports, but it was speculated at the time, and as far as I know, it was part of the official report. So that just puts it right back into the mystery zone. I mean, the hypothermia thing is perfectly viable, but then you still have all of the like the tongue and the missing eyeballs and the lips being eaten and stuff. That could just be a hungry animal.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a postpartum decay as well.
Yeah.
Just after they died, naturally being worn away. Although, saying that,
sorry, it happened in 1959. I just have the 70s in my head.
Yeah. Saying that it could just have happened after the fact. There are people that have died on, say, climbing Mount Everest, have had to be left there because it's usually a choice for whoever they're with. It's either we help them get down and risk or probably kill ourselves helping them, or we go on without them, and that is a risk that everyone that climbs Everest takes.
Yeah,
you know, for various reasons, and because the extreme cold on Everest has actually preserved the bodies and especially their clothing so well that they actually use people as they go up Everest as markers almost. Like kind of a, when you go, if you turn left at Green Jacket, if you go past Red Boots, you've gone too far.
Yeah.
That's not quite a little thing, because I doubt it's quite that straightforward climbing Everest. But so the thought of them kind of decaying so quickly. I mean, how long was it? Was it about I'm remembering 20 days.
Yeah, I read
for some
between
reason
two,
before
between 2
they
and
found
3
them.
weeks, because
Yeah.
I think they found 2 bodies first, and then they found the rest a little bit
Rest
later
of
than
them.
that.
Yeah, and I mean that's not long enough for, especially in that temperature, and they would have decayed more than just their lips and eyes.
Yeah.
You know, other parts of them would start decaying. You know, like the toes and fingers and stuff like that. I'm assuming.
And as well as that, you have like the fact that a lot of the bodies were noted to have like a really brown tan, which is no doubt because they were stripped and left in the open. And you know, if it's at a really high point, there's obviously going to be a point where some sunlight gets in. But at
exposed to the sun, and the snow will reflect the sun onto them, and
yeah.
But
at the same time, like if you're saying that it could have been, you know, post-mortem decay or whatever, like you're right, it would stem to the entirety of the body. And I assume if they had decayed by the level where their face would start falling apart, then a tan wouldn't exactly be possible to differentiate from just, you know, the fact that they're decaying. I think the most likely thing for the tongue and lips would just be an animal looking at it, and because it's the most I guess if they were sniffing out for food or something, your face is going to smell like food the most because you've eaten and stuff. But it is still very odd. The radiation thing for me, and the fact that the tents were torn open
from the inside,
yeah, like that's just, obviously they lost their minds a little bit and went crazy, but you know, a compelling natural force, high levels of radiation, and people losing their minds is definitely a cocktail that'll get you one hell of a fucking mystery with many different theories.
Yeah, I've just read something saying another group of hikers about 50 kilometres south of the incident reported that they saw strange orange spheres in the night sky to the north, likely in the direction of the incident.
Yeah, that's one of those things I knew about, but I'm such a skeptic. Like I'm such a dickhead with this. I'll just say that's bullshit. You know.
I don't know. That is kind of, that brings me on to the thought of, what if that and the radiation, that coupled with the radiation, nuclear weaponry being tested by the Russian army.
It's not impossible.
You know, that's not. You know, that's a fairly. There's definitely something that's possible.
Because this is 1959. Like the atomic bomb had been dropped on, you know, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, 14 years previous. It's definitely. In fact, I'd say it's probably likely that the Russians were trying new weaponry and stuff, because this was in the build-up to the Cold War. So obviously the tensions between America and Russia would have been increasing. Like, it's not impossible that they were testing things like that. And I don't want to badmouth Russia too much, because they're a bit more powerful than I am. I know after reading several stories about the cosmonauts that they sent into space and the complete lack of safety regulations and things like that, I think the USSR in general had this sort of collateral damage type of mentality when it came to sending people into space. As long as they did it, it didn't matter what happened to them. Obviously, I mean, safety would have been a priority, but it's seemingly not a very large one for these. And you can read many stories about how kind of careless they were.
I think Russia has always had a very. This is a very broad statement. Russia's always had a very cavalier attitude to the people, their civilians, and just their people that they have at their disposal. You know, and that's evidenced in, you know, that was evidenced by far in World War II, where they essentially just used their masses of soldiers to essentially steamroller everybody that stood in their path.
And I have actually a recent story that I remember reading. Some of the facts will be off, but the whole premise of the story I have perfectly intact in my head. This was around the year 2009, I reckon, and there was a tanker, like a Russian tanker, somewhere in the ocean. I think it was around the Atlantic Ocean, and it had, like, you know, like, it was a huge ship full of containers that were, you know, part of, like, maybe it was something to do with the Russian government or something, but it was definitely important enough for for pirates to attempt to get on board and take the stuff from them and use them as hostages, but B, after that had happened, the Russian, I think it was like the Russian version of the SAS, like the Russian kind of secret service, or the Russian soldiers who specialize in boat operations, because I know the SAS is actually Special Air Service and there's SBS for boats, but whatever, they sent, we'll just call them the Russian Navy, onto the boat. And what they did was they got all the pirates on board. Like they infiltrated the boat, they freed the people who were captured, and they got all the pirates and tied them up and put them into a dinghy and left them in the middle of the fucking ocean and went back to Russia. And when the Russian defense minister was asked what happened to the pirates, his response was, like, under official questioning, his response was, he shrugged his shoulders and went, "They probably died." So that's their level of, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that all of Russia is like that. I know it's not, but I think I think people will understand the context of what we're talking about here. You know, I guess the potential for collateral damage, or just this sort of, you worry about getting the job done more so than anything else, because that takes the high priority or whatever. It could very well be some form of military experiment. I think that is quite a leading theory as well.
Yeah,
for it to do with military
scientific experience, military use. You know, I think it's all completely possible, especially in the depths of Russia, where you're not kind of expected to see a lot of people.
Yeah, Russia's a big place. Like, it's a gigantic. You reckon you could fit America into about 10 times, maybe?
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah, so we were talking about how big America was earlier, like that's how big Russia is. So it's very possible that they just did that and weren't even expecting people there. I actually think we should have led with that, because that makes them sound less like cold-blooded killers.
No, yeah.
But yeah, like that's very possible.
But yeah, I think... Is it time to talk about the Malaysian airline flight?
I don't think we can escape it.
No,
I want to say this.
Definitely not.
Right, yesterday was St. Patrick's Day. We're recording this on the 18th of March. As of now, they haven't found the plane. And when you're listening to this, there's a good chance that me and Jack are drunk, because we're actually in Brixton. And we're at a concert right now.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this, like, you know, that's the situation. That's what's going down. So if we say anything that has since been debunked or has since been, you know, completely striked off and rendered completely impossible, like, you know, don't be a dickhead about it. We didn't know.
Yep.
So you just lead it in. You
yeah, sure. A Malaysian airline flight's MH307 took off from, was it Thailand or China?
I think it.
God, this is an awful start to the story.
I thought that it left Malaysia.
I thought it was headed towards Malaysia.
No, I thought it was headed towards China.
It left somewhere with a lot of Chinese people on it.
Hold on, I'm gonna look this up, because this is too. I can't let this happen. What was the name of the flight again? MH370. MH370. I was sure that it left Malaysia. There must be a Wikipedia page for it by now. Yeah, scheduled international flight. It appeared from Kuala Lumpur, and it was going towards Beijing International. I knew it was going to China.
Okay.
And
yeah, I think as far as memory serves, which clearly isn't a great marker for things, but it was 159 Chinese nationals.
Yeah.
And something like 253 people on board in total.
Yeah, something like that.
Something in that region.
And I will say as well, if some of these facts are wrong, that's genuinely down to how the media has reported this. Like, we had reports last week that somebody on board was an expert in piloting. Like, one of the passengers was an expert pilot, so if something had gone wrong, they could have contacted him. But that turned out to be a complete fabrication, and he wasn't actually on the flight at all. So some of the things coming out are a little bit suspect. A lot
of the things coming out are very convoluted.
Yes,
there is no real solid explanation for anything that's happened thus far, and I'm sure you've all read or seen about it on BBC, Telegraph, CNN, Reddit, anywhere. It's everywhere at the moment.
It's everywhere, and like the official reports have started out very conservative and reserved, where it was like, you know, it probably just they came into difficulty, they crashed, it's a tragedy, but we're going to look for the wreckage. And then it got a little bit crazier.
Yeah, I mean, there was the systematic shutdown of all
telecommunications.
All telecommunications, yes, that's it. And reports that to have done that, they would have had to have climbed underneath, through the panel that's on the cockpit floor, and into the underbelly, essentially, of the cockpit, and essentially dismantle the wiring by hand.
So if you've ever seen the movie Snakes on a Plane, I know that's a bad reference, but a snake does that, and the pilot has to go down into that exact point that you're talking about, and he has to fiddle around with the wires a little bit to try and get it back to normal. So that's like a little, that if you want to visualize it, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and reports of the co-pilots, the co-pilot speaking the last words that were heard, which were "all right, good night."
Yeah.
There was reports of them making a rapid ascent and then a rapid descent.
Yeah, and there's been several reports from some of the islands around that area, because there's a lot of islands around that area. There have been several reports of a plane flying low. One guy working on an oil rig said it.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
The latest one has come out of a set of islands that were kind of in between Madagascar and Australia, in that little section of the Indian Ocean, and they're a set of islands that I swear I fucking looked for them on Google Earth this morning, and I had to zoom in to to the level where you would zoom in and see your back garden. That's how far I had to zoom to see this fucking island. It was so small.
I mean, it was loaded up with, was it near 7 hours of fuel or something like that, or flying time left when it last disappeared. So you've got an area, depending on which direction they go, which encompasses 3/4 of Australia, India, China, a lot of the Middle East, and a big chunk of the Indian Ocean, as well as just this massive amount of space that's possible. And I've read things varying from the pilot had lost his, had broken up with his wife the day prior.
Yeah.
And and then things about how two people that were meant to be on board had their passports stolen in Thailand, and then they were clocked in as being on board, so their passports had gone through security, but they came forward and said that they weren't on board, so there's the terrorist possibility.
Yeah. And
this is something that really annoyed me that I saw yesterday, actually. The captain, would you say it's weird for an airline pilot to have a flight simulator in his house?
I don't know. I know for a fact that pilots use these a lot to kind of test their ability or try new things, or just
keep sharp on their knowledge.
Yeah, learn a little bit more about it. But I know that being a pilot is a lot different to a regular job. I sort of had this weird thought not so long ago of where the fuck do pilots come from? Have you ever known a pilot in your life?
Nope, can't say I have.
Neither have I. Right now, I've been to 4 different schools across 2 different countries. I've lived in 3 different countries. I've known a lot of people in my life, and I've never known anybody who's gone on to be a pilot. Being a pilot is something that you have to be extremely intelligent and all of that stuff to do. But I know that being a pilot is something that people are really, really passionate about, far more so than any other job. Or at least far more so than the majority of jobs. And it's something that they are just incredibly proud of and whatever. And I think for that reason, if I think about it like that, I wouldn't say it's odd.
No. I mean, a comparison that I saw that was fairly light in nature was that would it be weird? Would it be weird for a stripper to have a stripper pole in her basement? That is a very simplistic thing, but is it weird for a footballer to play FIFA on the weekends?
Yeah, exactly. It's not really odd at all. Sense.
And especially, I mean, the time that it takes to become a pilot. I think to become a commercial pilot, it's several thousand hours of flight time. Mm-hmm. You've got to have recorded.
Yeah.
And you have to be passionate about what you do.
Yeah.
And why would you not want to do it as much as possible, even if that means doing it in a simulator in your home?
It's actually a job that some airliners charge people to just apply for a job as a pilot. Like, that's something that happens. So I don't know. I did also read a lot of reports about the pilot supporting a particular political leader, and they were trying to make it in, like, trying to sort of, you know, pin down some kind of I think this sort of talk is the type of thing that the media just feeds off, and they'll latch onto anything just to sell a story. So, like, supposedly this pilot was a supporter of a leading politician who was recently like, sort of, what's the word, he had his power taken away from him because he was a homosexual, and this pissed off the pilot and stuff. But, like, I mean, I have strong political opinions, and that doesn't really that doesn't suggest that because he's angry a politician got taken away from his power unjustly that he's going to go crash a plane, especially not without making some kind of statement about it, you know, or summing up why he's done it, and hinting to the injustice to try and, because most people who would do something like that are the type that would also release a statement that says, like, listen to how unjust this is, I am going to crash this plane to show you how unjust it is, or whatever. And I think, and as well as that, the passports gone missing, or the odd passports that were on board not belonging to the two guys, that's really just because that particular area around Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia is well known as a hotbed for counterfeit passports and passport theft, and there's just a huge black market for that type of behavior because people want to emigrate and people want to get away and stuff like that. So it's, with all of that rational thinking put in to sort of debunk, or not debunk, but just challenge the perception that it could have been hijacked, you're still left with a fucking hell of a mystery, because every single report that's come out, if you add them all up together, what you've got is, we have no fucking idea what happened. We can't rule anything in and we can't rule anything out. Could have been aliens. Like, that's pretty much what you're left with.
I think the most likely, or one of the theories that I read that was quite morbidly interesting, was that one of the people, or someone on board, was essentially a terrorist, and that they took the, I mentioned the rapid ascent and descent earlier. They took control of the cockpit, took out the telecommunications devices, ascended to, I think it was 45,000 feet, blew out the windows in the main passenger area, or decompressed the cabin, essentially killing everyone in the cabin. And then dropped back down, descended rapidly back to, I think it was 1,500 feet. That seems incredibly low, especially for that caliber of aircraft. But it was something very, very low down. And then there was possibly they crashed it into, my assumption is the Indian Ocean. That seems the most likely place for it to have disappeared. But apart from that, there's no real indication of. And I read other things where it might have been snuck into Pakistani airspace.
I read
which
that
would mean sneaking under military radar in Pakistan, which seems very unlikely.
Especially when you consider that America funds Pakistan's military infrastructure. They give them something like $200 billion a year or something for that. So they're not, like, I mean, like a lot of people, when they picture like Pakistani infrastructure, are probably have a huge misconception of what it's like. I mean, it's not some tin pot radar that they made in their back garden. In a sandcastle. Like, that's not how it is. It's a proper like they definitely have the capabilities to pick something like this up. The reason that it was lost on Malaysian radar was something to do with the fact that Malaysia literally can't afford to pay for that type of radar system, so they just turn it off when they don't need it. It's something strange like that. I think, right, when an airliner goes missing, it's either down to the country who supplied the airline, or it's down to the country that it departed from. I'm not sure which, because both are applicable in this, but it's down to the airliner to lead the investigation. It's down to that country, and I just don't think Malaysia is equipped to lead this investigation.
Malaysia, is by no means equipped, but I think it was something like 20 something nations have stepped in to offer their help.
But they're not allowed to steer it, they're not allowed to take control of it. Like, they're not allowed to do anything like that. And I think had China been allowed to lead the investigation, we would have found it by now, because the Chinese are incredible. That like this is their
ruthlessly efficient at times. Yeah.
Yeah, like for sure. Like their satellites alone would probably, had they been focused on a particular area or something, like they would have found it. You know, like they have very, very technologically built up resources to do this type of thing. But because Malaysia has to lead it, and I'm not saying this to diss Malaysia, like I reckon if Ireland had to lead an investigation, we would fuck it up in all kinds of ways possible. And I just think that we missed the kind of the first 3 days, I'd imagine, when a plane goes missing are pivotal, because it's your chance of finding it in its most intact thing, and
essentially before it starts to sink into the ocean.
Yeah, and on
while there's
top
still
of that,
debris floating.
Yeah, and it's when it's fresh in people's memories enough so that if they give a description of something that they've seen, it's going to be as accurate as it can be, because your memory deteriorates and changes things, you know, over time. So the truth is, the fact that it's been this long and we haven't found it means that we might not ever find it, which is just really like sad.
Part of me is wondering how there was, as soon as it was lost from military radar, why there was nothing, like they weren't, like China or somewhere weren't scrambling the jets to find all of these nationals.
Yeah.
And because they were, the majority of the people on board were Chinese nationals, and why Malaysia couldn't just go, well, we don't have the naval military capacity to scramble jets to hunt this thing down.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we get China?
Yeah,
to give us a hand as soon as it went off? Surely there is a course of action for as soon as a plane goes off radar like that to attempt some way to attempt to find it.
Yeah,
like immediately.
And there's a lot of speculation amongst, like, you know, people of average intelligence like me, saying that a lot of countries are not committing to this the way that they should be because they don't want to compromise their resources. Like, they don't want their enemies to know what's up. Like, listen, right, China, no doubt, it's a communist country. Well, they have state capitalism there, but you know, like they censor the internet and they censor all these things, and like they're definitely gearing towards this kind of control over their people, and it's definitely a little unsettling for us Westerners who are used to life the way that we have it and things. I don't think China would fuck around when it comes to international relations. Like, think about how influential China is in the world right now. They're literally the biggest superpower in the world. Although America would like to think they are, I think China are, because America owes China like so much money, and China is the leading, you know, like they're just the fastest growing economy on the planet. And when it comes to international relations, they're not going to do anything that's going to piss anybody off. Like, they're not going to find out what it is and then cover it up. Like, that's not how you behave when it comes to international relations like this. You know, like, it's not... I just don't think that would be on their minds at the moment. Not
to mention things, you know, going on across the world, with you know, really tense between a lot of big powers. You know, really tense relationships at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd kind of think there'd be that you wouldn't think that something like this, kind of think that this could almost not bring them together, but
yeah,
you could kind of overlook any,
they're not going to
quote unquote personal.
Yeah, exactly. And that there's been many cases of that happening before as well. Like, I'm sure I've read stuff about America and Russia working together on several things, even in the midst of the Cold War. Not anything important to do with military infrastructure or stuff, but you don't just say, like, nah, man, I'm not giving up my satellite. Like, you know, I don't think that would enter the... Do you have your own sort of opinion on what happened? Like, is there anything that you think...
My own opinion on what happened? I doubt it was mass technical failure. I think the most likely thing is almost a lone act of terrorism, but it's really too early to... I say too early to say.
Yeah, I don't want to make
either way, I think it's crashed into the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
As to what made it that happen is very up in the air. I just read something saying why have there were 239 people on board. Why not all of them would have turned off their mobile phones?
Why are the phones ringing out?
How are the phones not been tracked to some extent?
I guess I'm sure
Possible
they've tried
communications, like.
I actually know why this is because there's no like telephone masts around that area.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just a vast, nothingness. Like you would not get any reception or anything, and that's why they're ringing out as well. Like I know a lot of people think it's odd for a phone to ring out if it would be turned off, but the reason that happens, I think this is why it happens. Someone explained it to me and I can't remember, so I'm gonna just hypothesize. But I think it's the fact that when your phone rings someone, it sends a signal to the nearest network or whatever, and then it pings that signal towards the phone. And the reason that it's ringing out is because it's just sending a signal. It's not getting anything back. It's just a sort of thing that happens, I think it was my first thought was it was rapid decompression in the cabin, and that killed everyone like it happened in that Greek flight in 2007, and it just crashed into the ocean from there. But all of this conflicting evidence keeps on coming up, and I'm just finding it impossible to commit to
The thing that I have a problem with the rapid decompression is why was why were the communications devices all disabled almost systematically one after the other?
Yeah, it's really weird. It's one of those things that I'd like to know how much that happens on regular flights anyway, Like I'd like to know if that's... I'm sure if it was proper order amongst everybody, we'd know about it, if that was the done thing. But I'd like to know how much it does happen, if there's any, statisticians out there who can point us in that direction.
I've seen plenty of theories saying, that the plane was successfully and hijacked and was flown to this island that is under this terrorist organisation control, and it's going to be flown again and packed with explosives,
Yeah.
And it's all I think that's a lot on a large part just scaremongering by the news outlets.
Yeah, I think so.
For the most part, I think the more likely explanation that it was that it was a kind of almost a lone attack.
Yeah.
Or a lone malfunction or something like that.
Yeah, something.
I think it's probably in the Indian Ocean.
I think it's definitely in the ocean.
Watch me be wrong, and it will turn up on mainland Australia
on the 21st of March when this episode is live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. One thing I hope is that it was rapid cabin decompression, and I don't hope that because I'm right. I just hope it because if everybody if that happens, the people kind of just die. Like they're not in pain or anything. Whereas I imagine drowning would be horrific in that type of environment. So I hope that happened, and I hope that it's found. But I don't know. It just gets.
I don't see it happening, to be honest.
It's all very strange. It's just such a large stretch of ocean as well that the fact that it's taken them this long to divert their attention towards it means that it could just be a lost cause now, I mean, it took them something like 2 years, or was it 5 years, to find the black box from the Air France flight that flew from Rio.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah, so
that was 2007, wasn't it?
Yeah, and keeping in mind with that, they knew where it was, or at least they had a fair idea, But I don't know. It's just a really, really sad story, to be honest, and I don't know. Hopefully, by the time this is aired, everyone they'll have
there'll be a conclusion to this. Because God knows the families of the people that were on board must be in a terrible state.
Yeah. And on that very sad note, I think we're gonna leave the podcast there. So stay positive, everybody. But yeah, thanks again for being on the show.
No worries.
I don't really know if everyone should comment again about being aware of the sea people, because I think we've raised enough awareness. So if you're still here, just I don't know, leave a like, leave a comment, do whatever. We don't care. No, I'm just kidding. Yep. We do care. But, your feedback is greatly appreciated as always, and thank you for the continued support on the series.
Yeah. Cheers.
See you next week.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. And whosoever shall be found without the soul for getting down must stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside a corpse's shell. The demons squeal in sheer delight. It's you they spy, so plump, so right. For though the groove is hard to beat, yet still you stand with frozen feet. You try to run, you try to scream, but no more sun you'll ever see. For evil reaches from the crypt to crush you in its